In your felted soap kit, you will find 2 wool bats, 2 bars of soap, and this small rectangle of tulle, along with a bowl of warm water. This is everything you need to make your felted soap bars. First, you will take one of the wool bats and unroll it so that it is a flat piece of fiber. Each one of the bats will cover 1 bar of soap. Depending on how big the bat is, it may have a little bit of extra fiber. So if you're wrapping it up and you don't think you need some of the extra fiber, feel free to pull it off and not use it. Next, take your bar of soap and wrap it tightly in the wool bat. The tighter it is, the easier it's going to felt, but don't worry, it is going to be a bit fluffy and loose at this step. Start in one end. You do want to cover all sides of the soap. I find it easiest if you wrap it around once and then keep rotating your bar of soap to cover all sides. You also want to make sure that the corners of the soap are covered because those are prone to sticking out through the felted wool. You will also be able to move the wool around a little bit as you're felting it, so don't worry about getting it perfect at this stage. Once all of the fiber is wrapped around your soap, take your piece of tulle and also wrap this tightly around your bar. You do not have to use the tulle, but it does make the process go a little bit faster. Once that is all wrapped up, you're going to bring your bowl of hot or warm water over. The temperature doesn't matter too much, but the hotter it is, the faster it's going to felt. Start by submersing your soap and squeeze it so that that water can get through the wool. And after it's relatively soaked, you are going to begin to rub the wool. Friction and the hot water, along with the soap from the bar, are going to felt the wool around the soap. If you do have it wrapped in tulle, make sure that you are not felting the tulle to your bar of soap. So if you're doing that, you'll want to occasionally open it back up and make sure that it's not stuck. And all sides of the bar need to be felted. I usually start on the large ends, and then after those are somewhat felted, I'm going to start with the smaller ends. And you keep dipping it in the water as needed. The reason for the tulle is it creates extra friction against the wool, but you can also just use your hands. Usually I use the tulle for the first part just to help get it started. And then once it's felted a little bit and the wool isn't going to rub off as easily, then I take it off and just use my hand against the bar of soap. Time to felt the wool does vary a little bit, but usually 1 bar will take about 10 to 15 minutes. You can see we've been felting it for a few minutes, and there's still some loose bits here on the edges, but it is starting to felt nicely. At this point, I'm going to take the tulle off, and I'm just going to use my hands to finish up the rest. If you're not sure if you're done, the wool will continue to felt as you use the bar of soap later. So if you did stop rubbing a little bit early and it's not quite as felted as it should be, that's not really a big deal because it will become more felted later. Once you are satisfied with the amount of felting on your soap bar, squeeze out as much of the excess water as you can. You can also pat this dry with a towel or paper towel and then set it aside to dry. Once it's dry, these are great for giving as gifts or using for yourself. Don't worry if a little bit of the dye color from the wool does come off in your bowl of water. This is relatively normal depending on the color that's being worked with, just because the soap and the hot water will take any of those extra residual dye molecules that weren't attached to the wool and make them come off. This will not dye anything itself. These are just loose molecules that will rinse themselves off. It's nothing to worry about.